views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJS, its board, staff, or underwriters.
Good day. This again is Ability Radio. We are a product of the Disability Rights of the Virgin Islands. I'm Archie Jennings, Director of Advocacy, and other co-hosts such as the Executive Director Angus Drago and guest host Amelia Headley Lamont also present information to the community, and we like to interact with other service providers around these issue of persons with disabilities. We are a nonprofit, non-governmental agency that provides advice and legal services to persons with disability. And of interest that's coming up in this next month is Veterans Day. And so we have with us today the Director of Veterans Administration in the Virgin Islands, Patrick Farrell. Good day, sir. How are you?
Pleasant good day to you, Archie, and your listeners, and I'm happy to be here.
Great. As I mentioned, Veterans Day is coming up, and there is an interplay with Veterans Day and the disability rights, civil rights movement. Those who led the way for the passage of what's now been in effect for 30 years, the American Disabilities Act, was central to the promotion of that law was the veterans from various wars, from World War I, World War II, then the conflicts in Korea, Vietnam, and the recent conflicts. So one of the issues that has always come up is that veterans may become disabled as a result of participating or being deployed, and making sure that they have the services and medical attention after they return home throughout the years. It's a long-term issue. And we want to explore, first of all, what services are available here in the Virgin Islands with the Veterans Administration as well as our office, and focuses on the latest collaboration regarding traumatic brain injury. So, Mr. Farrell, I want to give out to the listening audience some information as to what's available for veterans in the Virgin Islands.
Well, Archie, I first want to start by I listened to you when you introduced yourself, and you said you are the Director of Advocacy. So I will tell you that I have a newfound love and a newfound respect for you, simply because of that word advocacy. Because us as advocates for no matter what it could be, being an advocate, a lot of times you're painted as a bad guy because you're standing up for the rights of others and for situations. And, a lot of times it seems like a thankless job. But I want to say thank you to you for being an advocate for what you stand for, because being an advocate myself, I know on a day-to-day basis what it could be like having to advocate for others and for not just for people, but for situations in general. So Archie, I want to say thank you, from the bottom of my heart for being an advocate. And then, like I said, I got a newfound respect and newfound love for you just because of that one word, advocacy.
Well, it goes along with the agency. We try to put our heart into the efforts of the agency, and not only me, but all our whole team is a team of advocates working for Disability Rights Center.
As a salute to you and the entire team at the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands. And as it relates to services that are available for veterans in the Virgin Islands, by way of the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, there are 2 community-based outpatient clinics here in the territory, one on St. Thomas, which is in the Medical Foundation building behind the Roy Schneider Hospital. And then in the St. Croix district, you have another community-based outpatient clinic right there in Barron Spot in the Village Mall. And those are the oversight of those is held by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. And that's the main spot for veterans to get their medical care and get all their medical attention. So veterans, if you're out there and you ever had a doubt as to where to go as it relates to your medical care, especially your service-connected medical care, those are the 2 places you would need to go. The Barron Spot, the Village Mall and Barron Spot, or the Medical Foundation building behind the Roy Schneider Hospital.
And beside those services, what else can Veterans Administration or from your office assist a veteran with, like housing or any other issues?
We deal with a myriad of different subjects and issues. We deal with as you would say, housing. We deal with where in the Virgin, because we are the state office, so we have the ability to acquire taxi medallions. We have the ability to assist you with getting veterans license plate, which is free. It comes at a free cost. We recently just added our this one is a good one for you, our disabled veterans license plates. We also have those now in stock in the St. Thomas and the St. Croix district. And of course, a veteran would need to be not just 100% service connected, but 100% service connected and permanent and totally disabled. Now, as I say permanently and totally disabled, that may sound a little harsh or a little bad or rough or whatever the case may be, but most times it's not as bad as it sounds, because we have so many veterans that are 100% service connected for whatever the injury or illness may be as it relates to our service, United States Armed Forces. But sometimes we have veterans that are 100% permanent and total, but still able to live their normal daily lives. So permanent and total, as it relates to the designation given by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, sometimes it's not as bad as it sounds. We also have the tax exemption, where we could assist veterans with getting the tax exemption, the homestead tax exemption. We also have education. We have the best state education reimbursement policy across the nation, where we have veterans that are able to go to our very locally owned United States USVI. I don't know why it just slipped my mind, but UVI, University of the Virgin Islands. Veterans are able to go to University of the Virgin Islands all the way up to doctoral level classes and earn a doctorate degree if you are a Virgin Islands veteran. So those are some of the things actually that the United States Virgin Islands Office of Veterans Affairs are able to help our veterans to get.
Well, one of the aspects of the collaboration that I was going to speak of is that recently, I think it was between the years 2019 and 2020, Veterans Administration had determined there were nearly 414,000 servicemen worldwide who had a indicated traumatic brain injury,
right?
Many times mild in effect. But what has been the program we're under is to, I would say, as a mandate or executive order from Congress, is to assist persons and veterans achieve full medical access. And through that program, we are available to give information, make referrals, assist and advocate for, like I mentioned before, many times medical records or access to medical records,
right?
Or even since I've been involved with the ADA, American with Disabilities Act, and veterans, was a change. I can't remember what years, because the hurricane sort of interrupted my timeline in regard to that. But from the veterans being able to choose their own medical provider rather than just relying totally on Veterans Administration. And sometimes there's been some glitches in that connection. So we have, contacted doctors' offices just to explore if there was a denial of service, what was the reason for it, and is there any reason that they can't use veterans benefits to get medical assistance here in the Virgin Islands? And how has that changed over from your perspective? Has that been effective communication to the medical providers here in the Virgin Islands?
Well, Archie, I think exactly what you're speaking of is what used to be the choice program. I call it the choice program, where a veteran could make their choice and go to any physician within the territory or even across the nation. But the choice program is no longer. And what we have now is the VA Community Care Network. It's a very, very simple process, but it helps to alleviate some of the issues that you spoke about with denial of being able to see those physicians. What happens with the VA Community Care Network is the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, they recruit physicians to be a part of the VA Community Care Network. And then they publish that list of all who is within that community care network. Within that network, the providers will simply say, hey, I opt in to be one that will serve our veterans. And then they are educated on what the process would be to get payments. So within that community care network now, what happens is when you go to one of the same two community-based outpatient clinics I spoke about on St. Thomas and St. Croix, you go there and see what's called your primary care provider. That primary care provider may not necessarily be a specialized doctor. It'll be more of a general doctor. And then that PCP will refer you out to a doctor or physician that's within the community care network. So that way you don't have to go out there and choose somebody that not maybe be within the network. The primary care provider will know who is within the network. That way, when they send you to this particular medical provider, we know for sure that you will not be denied access to that provider. You will be seen. And then when you are finished being seen by that medical care provider, that medical care provider already knows the process of what needs to be done to get reimbursed for their services to the veteran. So that has dramatically increased.
So the veteran themselves does not go out and make contact with a provider at this point.
That is no longer. The primary care provider does that part for them now.
Well, that certainly helps us because essentially, I think for some veterans, they still believe they're under the choice program.
No,
because that was part of what the confusion was off the top of my head. And essentially, I referred them back to the Veterans Administration, and maybe they resolved the problem because the veteran did say they're no longer in need of our services. But it's good to know that that program has changed. Essentially, I get confused because sometimes I communicate with gentlemen that I grew up with from high school and grade school who are veterans. So I sort of get both ends of the spectrum as what they're able to get in Ohio or Arkansas, and then what is available here. Of course, they have much larger facilities and cover a wider region than what you have.
And that's the only difference between the Virgin Islands and anywhere else on the mainland. They may have more access to facilities that have, a larger spectrum of what can be done. And that's one of the reasons why the community care network is very, very important and vital, because your primary care provider, which is at one of the CBOCs, the community-based outpatient clinics, they will know who to refer you out to get that specialized services.
Okay, great. And as to the upcoming Veterans Day, are there any announcements or things that are going to be happening here in the Virgin Islands to give recognition to the veterans?
Absolutely. We join the rest of the nation in celebrating our veterans each and every year. As a matter of fact, we celebrate our veterans on an everyday basis, but we just kind of shine the light on them a little bit more during the month of November. So we are having a parade and ceremony on St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix as normal. This year, the Sunday, the 5th of November, will be our pre-Veterans Day parade on the island of St. John. And that will start at 1 o'clock in the Cruz Bay area. The parade will kick off right there in the National Park area, and then we'll move down into the heart of Cruz Bay by the Frank Paul Park, where we'll have our ceremony immediately after the parade. Then on Saturday, November 11th, and even though it's a Saturday, November 11th is the nationally proclaimed holiday. So we are going to continue to have our parade and ceremonies on that particular day, even though it's a Saturday. We will start on St. Croix in the town of Frederickstead at 9 a.m., starting from the post office there in Frederickstead. And then we're going to make our way down to the Vern I. Richards Veterans Memorial Park, where we'll have the ceremonies. And then later on the same day, Saturday, November 11th, we will have the same parade on the island of St. Thomas, starting at 3 p.m. And that's going to start from the Emil Griffith Park on the island of St. Thomas. And we're going to go straight eastward up the Veterans Drive, up around to the promenade, where we'll have our ceremony immediately after the parade. So that's 3 parades on 3 different islands.
Great, great. And beyond that day, are there any other follow-up events?
Actually, we started something called a Veterans Appreciation Day a few years ago. And this year, what we're going to do is on the 2nd of November, we have the Veterans Appreciation Day on the island of St. Croix at the 10 Pins Bowling Alley. And then on the 4th of November, we have the Veterans Appreciation Day on the island of St. Thomas on board the Kentucky for Day Sail. We usually don't have too many events after the actual Veterans Day. We try to do them prior to, where the end of it and the real celebratory part will be on actual Veterans Day, which is today, 11th November. But we are going to have a seminar coming up on St. Thomas and St. Croix this coming Monday on St. Thomas and Tuesday on St. Croix, where we'll be educating veterans on the proper way to fill out claims. So I ask that those of you that are out there, you pay attention to our website, veterans.vi.gov, or even tune into your local radio stations and daily periodicals, and we'll have that press release out there as to date and time for those 2 seminars.
And with regard to veterans, I've over the years I've handled a couple of cases with regard to employment. Usually under the American Disabilities Act, they got a big boost with regard to having the ability to ask for accommodations if they need some because of their disability. So that body of law has grown tremendously over the last 30 years. And I do not know if you hold any seminars or webinars with regard to that, but that's something we could collaborate on, because we, as the Disability Rights Center, we're also an affiliate of the Northeast ADA Center out of Cornell University. And so we provide through them with expertise. We try to stay current on seminars or webinars on how to request an accommodation and what the steps are and what you're entitled to. So in fact, that's just a general question, but also a request.
Actually, from my office, we usually leave that to the Veterans Benefits Affairs, which is called VBA. And I could, at a later time, I could put you in direct contact with them, because they're the ones that do the outreach portion as relates to what you're speaking of now with the webinars and seminars and stuff like that for disabled veterans. So I'll be happy to connect you with that agency so that you could get that collaboration going as well.
Great, because essentially, especially as those who have severe disabilities or lifelong disabilities, the issue as you age gets more critical, because they're caught between ageism and being a person with a disability.
Correct.
So we would certainly appreciate it and would like to, extend that offer to the veterans here in the Virgin Islands.
Absolutely.
And I mentioned the other one was we don't seem to have that many. I mean, I've been in California where a lot of veterans were homeless, and I know there's a housing issue, but you want to speak to that, to what the state of affairs are for veterans and here in the Virgin Islands?
I would say to you that we don't have a large influx of homeless veterans in the Virgin Islands. that we know about. And I say that we know about because there could be homeless people on the street that may, in fact, be veterans, but we just don't know that they are veterans. The ones that present themselves to us, or that we know about, we work in tandem with a couple of different organizations to assist them with getting back on their feet and getting stabilized. But I am happy to say that there is not a whole lot of homeless veterans here in the Virgin Islands. Now, granted, as the time of year change and it gets cold on the mainland, you may find that quite a bit of people may find themselves to a warmer climate, a warmer temperature. Well, the Virgin Islands is one of those places under the US flag that a lot of folks tend to move from the colder part of where they're at to the Virgin Islands. Sometimes we may have veterans that's a part of that crew, sometimes not. But as far as veterans that are permanently here on the island, living homeless that's presented themselves to us, there's not a large number whatsoever. And those that are presenting themselves to us, we have assisted them with steering them into the right direction as far as a couple of nonprofit organizations that have grants that are able to help veterans that are homeless and eligible.
And in that regard, those organizations, do they participate like the homeless count? Because I know.
Yes, they do.
Right.
Yes, they do. One of the main organizations that we partner with as it relates to our homeless veterans is MTOC. It used to be Methodist Training and Outreach Center, but it's now meeting the needs of our community. And I'm pretty sure you may have heard of that nonprofit organization, but we are very good partners as it relates to, enhancing the quality of life for our veterans here in the territory. They're a very great partner.
And our focus, again, being with traumatic brain injury, why I believe the administration and the Veterans Administration, as well as the network of Disability Network, because it is a condition that can be mild, that gets worse with age.
Correct.
And a lot of people don't know that maybe the headaches, the sleeplessness, that they should go back and make sure, since you have a primary physician position now, follow up and let the physicians know what you're experiencing, so that they, if there need be, they can send you back under this program. I think they determining a rehabilitation type of approach where there's screening that's being done on a regular basis and sort of a tracking of the condition, especially for veterans, because it's not like they were in a car accident or had a fall that they hit their head. It's generally due to concussion-like conditions.
Correct.
Such as being in the blast zone when they're deployed or around a bomb blast, and they may not have felt any repercussions at that time, but it grows with time. So I think
the word concussion, I'm happy you mentioned that, because some folks will not be familiar with the term TBI, traumatic brain injury, but they may be more familiar with the term concussion because they've heard so much about it. So I'm glad you mentioned that word concussion.
Right. And actually, they made a movie about the guy who determined similar small concussions can lead to a major illness.
Right.
And essentially the veterans are somewhat in that same position, because they may have been, depending on how long they were deployed, might have been around a lot more blast areas than they really realize.
Yes, absolutely. And it's the deployment times have they're not really that short, so there's so much possibility where you could be in a situation and have a TBI and not even know. So of course with your line of the statements that you're making, I would say that I recommend and I urge our veterans to continue looking and trying to get the best medical care that they can. And while you're at it, check for TBIs as well.
Great, great. And just as a reminder, the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands would assist on information referrals, individual advocacy, and administrative hearing representation and assistance with self-advocacy. So due to the nature of what they're trying to assure that all federally funded government agencies or private nonprofits like ourselves are attuned to the issue of traumatic brain injury.
Right.
We also have within our realm children issues. Essentially, that's what came to our door first. Just from the mere fact that either somebody shakes a baby, they might get a concussion, or that children fall off their bikes and get a head injury and the parents not realizing it. But distinct change in behavior is one of the key things that you look for in children or adults. Their personality may change, but essentially that's one of the things we want to make sure that the key message that gets out there. But just in case, would you give your contact information again for the general audience and for veterans?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can be reached in the St. Croix district at 340-773-8387, or in the St. Thomas district, 340-774-8387. Or you could get on our website if you don't remember those numbers at veterans.vi.gov. You could also reach us there, or an email address, info@va.va.vi.gov. You got plenty of ways to reach us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Farrell. And it's been a delight to get updated on information. And for the general public, let's all be kind to one another. And as we know what's going on in the rest of the world, we can be grateful in that we are not under a hurricane or that we're not a battle zone.
Correct.
So take care. And that's it for Ability Radio.
All right. Thanks for having me.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.